Let's talk Subaru JDM motors. Should you go JDM? Should you stay USDM? I have this version 8 STI motor in my vehicle and had it for about a year now, but it's not my first one. This is probably my third or fourth, and I've helped a bunch of people install and get JDM motors up and running in their WRXs, STIs, and older Subarus. Where to buy them and what to look out for when you're purchasing them, and what in addition to the JDM motor do you need to get it up and running to utilize everything that a JDM motor brings to the table. So the first thing, do you need a JDM engine? Should you stay USDM? Oh man, a lot of different things go into this, right? So if you're looking to stay daily driver or just the cheapest way possible, a JDM motor typically isn't the way to go. USDM, you can buy something used on Facebook Marketplace or go with an IAG block even, but staying USDM typically will be cheaper in the long run for most people. The reasons you would go JDM, in my opinion, they're more reliable motors, especially if when they're received, resealed, just the maintenance is performed on them regularly. Both JDM motors that I'm going to be referring to today are 2-liter JDM engines. Most of what we get here in the States are 2.5 liter, just because we like our torque. I'm not a big fan of that. Torque breaks stuff. Torque feels good down low, but with that torque and with that extra displacement comes a smaller cylinder wall. So the 2.5 liters use the same block as the 2 liters. So you can imagine to get that extra displacement, they're having to thin out the cylinder walls quite a bit. But we'll go in depth here on both of the motors that I'm talking about if you have decided that a JDM motor is right for you and you want to move forward with that, right? So tracking the car definitely would require, or I would imagine that you would need a JDM motor. The higher RPMs, that's where you really want to, this motor will shine. This thing revs out to 8,000 RPMs from the factory. No tune is needed to even do that. I will suggest you definitely need a tune with these JDM motors, but I mean, you don't necessarily need it to get that RPM or that rev limit raised up. So at the track, you're going to be staying higher in the RPMs. Maybe for autocross, maybe more torque is what you need. So it's up for debate. You're going to probably have to do a little more research and figure that out more for yourself. But once you determine that JDM may be better for you, there's two kinds of JDM. Well, there are two ones that I'm going to go over today. And this spans from the older Subarus, 93 and all the way up to 2007, which you can kind of put in these things really easily. You can put JDM motors in newer ones as well. It's just kind of a harder swap to do that way. So the first one is the JDM EJ205. And the JDM EJ205, it's a WRX motor that they got in Japan. It has AVCS, which is Subaru's version, if you don't know, of VTEC. Honda's VTEC comes on late in the RPMs to give them more power. Subaru's AVCS is more of a lower RPM thing and kind of fades away once the turbo kicks in and lets the turbo take over for the rest of the RPM range. Also, it's 9-to-1 compression, which is very high compression. E85 will love that. You can get quite a bit out of these relatively easily, and they're not too expensive. You can typically get JDM EJ205 for about $1,000 to $2,000 with a warranty, depending on where you get it. Then the second option, which is the EJ207, which is like the one I have behind me. So the ones that I'm going to go over today are between the version 7 and the version 9. They go all the way up to version 10, 11, 12, so on and so forth. But I'm referring more to the cable-driven throttles. Once you get into the electronic throttles, the drive-by-wire throttles, it may be more of a difficult swap, especially if you're going into an older motor. So the version 7, which some people may know, may not know, the version 7 STI motor it came in the Bug Eyes, actually. We didn't get Bug Eye STIs here or 01, 02 STIs here. It came with forged internals. So that's a big selling point for a lot of people. So that would be what the version 7 has. Version 8, version 9, and so on, they went with bigger port heads, so high flowing heads, and cams and everything. Also twin scroll setups. Most of these come with twin scrolls, some variation, either a ball bearing or not. This comes with a VF37. So with a twin scroll, what that means is there's two pipes going to the turbo. Subaru rumble that you're maybe used to doesn't totally go away, but with equal length headers and a twin scroll up pipe, you're going to lose quite a bit of that. And some people like that, some people don't. The twin scroll also comes with obviously the ability to spool a little bit quicker, kind of gimmicky, maybe not a huge spool increase, but definitely a little bit. And I modified the VF37 on this, so it's a little bit more powerful, but I try to stay around stock turbo, the maxed out of a stock turbo with the 85. Personally, you may want to do something a little bit different. So where do you buy these? Now that you have decided, you're like, oh, I want one, where do I buy it? The places that I've dealt with and helped people buy these motors through, first one is JDM Racing Motors. You may have heard of them. They're pretty synonymous with Subaru JDM motors especially, but other manufacturers' motors as well. They come with 60-day, I believe, maybe at least 30, but maybe 60-day warranties. And then also compression tests are posted immediately with each motor, so you know they're not like waiting, or you're gonna have to ask them for a compression test, and they're not putting a motor up unless it has good compression, right? So that's a good thing there. Their sister company, which is called J-Spec Auto, I believe they're out of Maryland. JDM Racing Motors was out of Canada. I believe they moved down into the States, but J-Spec Auto is a sister company and does the exact same thing. I was told when I purchased a transmission, I believe about 2 years ago, an STI JDM 6-speed transmission, that JDM Racing Motors didn't have it, but their sister company did, and they led me to them. Again, same warranty, same tests they're running, same reliability. You can kind of, you know that you're not just going to give them a credit card number and then they're kind of going to run away. You're not going to hear from them again, right? So everything from shipping to everything is just great. The third option would be, and this is like not the fallback, because you may have somebody locally that you can go to or some of that, but eBay. eBay is actually a pretty good option. The reason being is because they use PayPal and the review system, right? So you can look through and see the reviews on someone trying to sell, a JDM motor. Is this the first JDM motor they're selling, the first Subaru JDM motor they're selling? Does it seem like they would know? Is if it's the only thing that they're selling and they have terrible reviews, then yeah, obviously shy away from them. But I ended up buying this motor specifically off of eBay because JDM Racing Motors and their sister company did not have a version 8 at the time that I was looking. It came with a 6-speed transmission. It was $6,000 with the 6-speed transmission and the motor. So I knew that even if the motor, there was something wrong, that I would be able to recoup my money or at least have a spare, because most times these version 8 STI motors go for around 5 or 6K by themselves. I did learn something here, some issues with it, right? Minor issues here or there, but the biggest one being, and I'll go into what you need to do in a second, but I replaced most everything. The thing I didn't go deeper on was the head gaskets. And it turned out that there was a mild head gasket leak, and I had to take the motor out and only was able to run the engine for about 5 minutes before I saw bubbling in the coolant reservoir and was like, oh crap, I need to take this out. The seller was very receptive to me saying like, hey, I need to take this out. I need to do more work on it. And actually gave me $900 or $1,000 back. And I was able to replace the head gaskets, the head studs. Obviously, I didn't even need a full $1,000, but obviously they wanted to make it right because it was my time that was going into this, right? So that was one of those things where eBay for the win in that regard. So for $5,000 and a little bit more extra time, I got a 6-speed and a motor. Worked out very well. The other thing that we're going to go into after is what are you looking for when you look at these motors? So you see a picture of them either from JDM Racing Motors, which is reputable, or eBay. What are you looking at? You're looking at, does it have any modifications on it? If there's a blow-off valve, if there's a boost controller, if there's a turbo inlet, anything you can see, a lightweight pulley on this motor in the pictures, I tend to shy away from those just because you don't know what else the person trying to sell that has taken off or put on to try to make it look more stock, because everyone wants something closer to stock. The more modified something is, the more it can be dogged out, if you will. The more someone may or may not have taken care of it or modified it in the correct way or the way that you want it to be modified. So you definitely want to shy away from anything modified, my personal opinion, or mild modifications at most. Second thing would be to look for rust. Some of these, obviously, they can sit in junkyards for a long time. There can be just sitting in a puddle really low, or the car could, or the motor itself. And then you're looking at, did water somehow get inside the motor? Maybe it's a flood car, and then rust on those cylinder walls and pitting. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole. That's just a nightmare, right? It's just a throwaway almost at that point. So rust is the second thing you want to look for. And then obviously we talked about it, but compression tests, at least, if not leak down tests, anything that the person selling can give you proving the health of the motor. Compression test is the most reasonable. What do you need in addition to the Subaru motors or these JDM Subaru motors to get them up and running, right? What do you need? Is it just the motor? Is it just a drop-in? It depends. Obviously, it varies from vehicle to vehicle. If you're putting this in a 93, it's obviously going to be a lot more wiring. If you're putting it into an 02 WRX, it's pretty simple wiring. This car behind me was a 95, or is a 95. I WRX swapped it first, and then I kept going. So it had a WRX harness, 02 WRX harness, and then I was able to put in this motor here fairly easily because I already had that WRX harness. The hard work I had already done, didn't have to do a harness merge or anything like that. It was pretty straightforward. So what will you need? Let's say you're putting this in an 02 to 05 WRX. It's pretty much the most common thing, or a car that's already had an 02 to 05 WRX swap, because that's also common for the older cars. The first thing is going to be the AVCS system. Both those motors that I referred to, the JDM EG205 and the JDM EG207, have AVCS. You want to be able to utilize that. Can you use your old ECU, a WRX ECU, and run those motors? Absolutely. Some states you may actually have to pass like a bar, carb. You may have to do that. But you can also swap between, right? So you can have your WRX harness or WRX ECU when you need to get it tested, and then run the JDM ECU, which is what I strongly advise everyone. A JDM ECU is very important, either JDM WRX or JDM STI one. A JDM WRX 02 to 05 16-bit ECU can run an STI, JDM STI 16-bit system as well. So you have the ability to control, you have those AVCS tables available to you in the ROM. And then along those same veins, with the AVCS system, you need to run wires to control that. That's the thing. The harnesses, the engine harnesses, will plug and play. So again, if you just wanted to shove it in, plug it in, and then get it tuned and run it, you could do that. No ECU, no wiring, no nothing. But you definitely want the AVCS system. So JDM ECU, and then you need to run, I'll post them here and then post them in the description. There's a couple places that offer wiring kits. They're not complex. It's 4 wires that you would need to actually put pins in. Companies sell them with the pins and the wires, the shielded grounds, everything. And then 2 or 3, or I think 3 or 4 pins that you would need to move. So basically what you're doing is you're going from a TGV or tumbler gas valve motor to an AVCS motor instead. So these motors don't come with TGVs. Mine doesn't come with TGVs. It's a straight through intake manifold, one piece. The USDM motors come with that TGV system because we're trying to, it's an emissions thing, basically. So they don't come with that. So you're using that wiring that would be for that on the USDM car for the AVCS. I'll post, again, links here, and then the instructions kind of come with it. It's pretty straightforward. It's not complex to do that. The third thing you would need, so we got JDM ECU, AVCS wiring. The third thing you would need is to, before you put the motor in, we're talking everything, right? You need to reseal it. You need to do the maintenance that should be performed at that mileage and mileage before that. So timing belt, all the idlers, water pump, timing belt tensioner especially, change all those things out. Change all of them. That's all the seals. And I would learn my lesson the hard way. The first one I didn't have to, but this one I did. The head gaskets. Take off the heads, replace the head gaskets, and while you're in there, maybe put in some head studs. I put in ARP head studs on this bad boy. Don't regret it. You're not going to regret putting head studs on. The head bolts on Subarus are supposed to be debatable, but I agree that they are one-time use. So you're going to have to probably buy new bolts anyway. Why not buy head studs? So head gaskets, head studs, valve cover gaskets, cam seals. Every seal or hose I would replace. Hoses get crunchy over time. This can add up. It cost me probably about, for all that stuff, probably about $800, $900. And then we're talking brand new stuff, right? And then the timing belt kit was like $300 or $400. So it adds up. Does this get pricey? Yeah. Last thing is it worth it, or would I do it again? Obviously, this is the third time I've done it. So yes, I would definitely do it again. A lot of people you'll see online, or a lot of builders have their cookie cutter build, right? Like when they get a car or they get a new Subaru or they're in a brand, this is my bread and butter. I do this. Typically, I found out this works for me after trial and error. I'm not saying you should stop trying and just always do the same thing over and over again, there's people who have been in the community for a long time. Me personally, about 20 years. I've had, USDM WRX motors, USDM STI motors, several of those, JDM motors, JDM WRX motors, and STI motors, NA motors that I turbocharged, various things. This is by far my favorite motor. Just the way it revs, how smooth it is. Sometimes with those torquier 2.5s, it can almost feel not uncontrollable, but there's a different feeling that comes with a lot of torque. Not saying it's good, not saying it's bad. You may like that. Me personally, this is what I like. I like that horsepower high and to stay all the way to the red line and just keep going, and feels like it doesn't ever want to shift. That feels great. So could it be for you? Yes. Is it for me? Definitely. And I think, again, if you're going with a track build, this is probably the best motor you're going to buy. If you get a great one, did your research and performed the maintenance on it when you got it. So thanks for watching. If you guys have any more questions about JDM stuff, I looked online. There's not a lot of stuff on JDM. A lot of people stay USDM, especially with the older, newer Subarus getting more popular. A lot of people may be buying an older Subaru, whether it's my year or the 02 to 05 WRX, or even all the way up to 07. And there's not a lot of stuff out there anymore. A lot of people seem like they're just going to the newer stuff. And the old ones, there's definitely a lot to be brought out from them, and I don't want to see them fall too much by the wayside. So let me know in the comments what I can add to this, any more links or helpful descriptions, or if I can go over anything more in depth. But thanks for watching, and please subscribe.